Welcome to the Bernitha Rena Relates podcast. I am your host, Bernitha Rena, and I am so excited to have you back for season 3 of the podcast. We are just going to have a wonderful time. So for over a year now, I have had the honor of helping so many incredible people share their stories, and those who've been brave enough to open up and share their hearts and really just let us in. And so as I was thinking about season 3, I thought about how grateful I am to all the guests who've joined us here for the last 2 seasons. And for you, I know you could be anywhere in the world, but I'm so grateful that you took time out of your day to listen to us and support us. So I want to say thank you. You know, it's so funny because when people see that the name of the podcast is Bernitha Rena Relates, sometimes people assume that the podcast is about me. But, you know, if you listen to even a little bit of this podcast, then you know that that's not true at all. I mean, I can relate. Yeah. But most of the time, I'm not the story. I'm the listener. I'm the one sitting here, you know, leaning in and asking questions and really just watching God use ordinary conversations to reveal extraordinary things in extraordinary people. And so as we begin to prepare for season 3, something just felt different. You know, this is a new season in every kind of way. It's a new season for the podcast. It's a new season for my life. And for the first time, we're moving from audio to videos. And I've been praying and asking the Lord, exactly how do you want me to make this transition? And little by little, I started to feel this nudge in my spirit. And at first I tried to ignore it. And then it just really became undeniable that it was time for me to tell my story. And so even though I'm terrified, this is my attempt to tell you how I went from corporate America to complete uncertainty to this podcast ministry and how God has used it to change my life. So let me start by saying that for more than 20 years, I lived a very traditional corporate life. I worked really hard, and it makes me laugh when I think about it because I really ran the rat race so well. The point is, I worked really hard, and my life, you know, it looked pretty good. I had what people would call stability, and I was really grateful. I still am. I still am very grateful. But deep down, you know how you know something's just off? There was just always this quiet ache in me, and it was a feeling that made me feel like I was built for more than just meeting deadlines and proving myself over and over and over again and trying to survive in environments where the expectations were high, but oftentimes the opportunities were so low. I was just tired. I was restless. And for so long, my prayer was just, Lord, get me out of here. I had already tried so many different business ideas, and some of them, they did make sense, but some of them didn't. I'm sure there were so many times my friends and family thought, Bernitha, what in the world are you doing? Y'all, I was so desperate, but I wasn't desperate for purpose yet. I was really just desperate for escape. I wanted freedom. I just wanted peace. I wanted to wake up and not feel trapped in what looked like success, but what felt heavy. Eventually, it took some time, but eventually my prayer started to shift from, Lord, get me out of here, to, Lord, what in the world do you want me to do in my life? And I began to read my Bible differently, not just out of habit. I started reading because I needed God to speak. And eventually he did. Y'all, those scriptures, they came alive. And the words I had read before, they suddenly felt like they were speaking to me. Because even though I was a Christian, my faith was so small. You know, they talk about faith the size of a mustard seed. My faith was so small. But I believe God was powerful. I always did. I just didn't believe that there was a lot of power in me. So I kept praying and I kept saying, Lord, please show me who you've called me to be. What am I supposed to do with myself? The more I prayed, the more I remembered something that had been there all along. I thought about it at one point when I was like 18 years old. I remember sitting in college. I was in an auditorium and there was, I think it was a motivational speaker. And I remember seeing him on stage and I remember looking at my friend that was sitting next to me and saying to my friend, I'm supposed to do something like that. I know I'm supposed to be talking to people, but I didn't know what I was supposed to say and who would listen to me. What message did I have? I was someone who didn't believe in myself that type of way. So I just buried that knowing. I went on with life. I went on with my career. I paid my bills. I took care of my responsibilities. But that desire, it never left me. Moving forward, many, many years later, I knew I needed to make some changes. And so I found myself writing down a list of things I believe God could do. I called this my manifestation of the spirit list. And in this list, I wrote that I would leave corporate America by a certain month at a certain year. And I remember my husband looking at the list and he was like, that date's pretty soon, right? And I was like, yeah, I know it's soon, but I'm gonna move forward with it anyways. And I kept praying on it. I was learning so much in that season. And I learned that sometimes faith looks like just putting things down on paper before you know how God's gonna do it and just waiting. And that's what I did. But let me back up a little bit. Because months before I left corporate America, I remember I was working on my self-evaluation. And if you've been in corporate America, you prepare those self-evaluations like months before you have your peer review or anybody looks at it or the payout. And I remember that year, and again, I've always been a hard worker, but that year I made sure I documented everything. I mean, every contribution, every single thing. And really my value was undisputable. And I remember that year I got the biggest bonus I had ever received in my life. So I knew at that moment, okay, God, you're doing something because you provided provision. But I'm still afraid. I'm still nervous about submitting my resignation. Well, I was fasting. I was praying. I was like, people are going to think that I'm greedy because I've been told I'm going to get this big bonus, but now I want to leave my job. So what should I do? Y'all, I was so nervous. And so I remember thinking, okay, what I'll do is I'm going to submit my resignation on the day that the bonus money hits my bank account. I'm just going to make sure that I get the money first. But I was still nervous. I was like, what is that going to look like? So I remember that morning going in, submitting my resignation. I'm thinking like, what's happening? Is anybody going to say anything? Y'all, it was crickets. Nobody was saying anything at all. Well, it turns out that the day I submitted my resignation, someone much higher up in the company than me also submitted their resignation on that same day. In corporate America, if you have a high level position, typically when you submit your resignation, you give like months of an advance notice. But this person gave a 2-week notice, just like little old me. So there was a lot of talk around like, how are we going to do everything? They only gave a 2 weeks notice. The point is, y'all, the Lord had covered me big time. Nobody was thinking about little old me. They were thinking about bigger things. And 2 weeks later, I walked away. I had my little money. I had the confirmation. I had the freedom that I had prayed for. But then I had another problem. Okay, I don't have any idea what I'm going to do next. Like, no idea. So I kept asking the Lord, now what? And the only thing I kept hearing was rest and take care of your family. Rest and take care of your family. But I didn't want to hear that. I'm thinking, I ain't got time to rest. Now I done left this job. I need a plan. No disrespect to housewives at all, but I'm thinking I did all this for what? To be a housewife? And so I wouldn't rest. I wouldn't sit down. You don't sit down, the Lord will sit you down. So I started getting sick. I started getting the pink eye. I started getting the flu. Eventually I had to rest. I had to sit down. And when I did get up, I just focused on serving my family and taking care of my house. And during that time, I started to have lots of dreams, lots of visions. And if I'm honest, was happening to me way before that. But now I have the time to really pay attention to it. And so I remember people would be on my mind. There would be like a person whose name wouldn't leave my mind. It would be a thought, a dream that I would have about someone that I hadn't talked to in a while. I just started reaching out to people that I had dreams about or whose names I couldn't let go of. And the funny thing about all this is not one person that I reached out to, it didn't matter if I hadn't talked to them in years. Not one person said to me, hey, what are you calling me for? Hey, I hadn't heard from you in such a long time. Nobody did that. everyone was just so happy to have a listening ear, a willingness um, to say, listen, I don't know everything, but what I do know is that God loves you, God cares about you. And I just felt the need to reach out to you. It was just such an interesting time. And I realized now that the Lord was preparing me for a lot because there was a defining moment. And if you listen to season one, then you know a little bit about this. And this is when I heard an audible voice tell me Lori needs some help. And when I heard that name, Lori, I knew it was my friend Lori from college, even though we hadn't spoken in years. And even though I had all these different Loris and Laura's in my phone, I knew it was that particular Lori. So I reached out to her and eventually we talked. And I've said before, the Lori that I reached out to, I didn't know she had been praying for help. I didn't know she was in deep grief and depression after losing both her parents within months of each other. She just asked the Lord to send someone, and the Lord sent me. And that still humbles me today because I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist or anything like that. I did not have any sort of grand answer. I was just a friend, but that was good enough for God to use. And the Lord had already been giving me lots of practice in this before, you see. And so it was so interesting because later on, Lori and I, we ended up having dinner with some friends. I remember I was just talking to Lori about I still don't know what the Lord is asking me to do. I've been following his every step, but I just don't know, like, what am I supposed to do in my life? And she said to me, you know, Bernitha, I remember you saying something about starting a podcast. Are you still considering starting a podcast? It sounded possible, but impossible at the same time. I don't know if you've ever had that experience where something can sound possible, but impossible. But I really just didn't have any idea where to begin. And I remember Lori reminded me that she had experience in media and production. So eventually she told me she could help. And like good business women do, we sat down, we came up with a plan, and suddenly the thing that had been unclear for so many years, it started to take shape. But y'all, let me just tell you, I prayed about everything, the name, the logo, the music. I mean, everything. And one by one, God gave me exactly what I needed. As far as guests, I really just reached out to people I knew, you know, friends, neighbors, people in my community. One day I got connected to this nonprofit organization called Her Next Chapter. And after going to a luncheon, I just said, listen, we don't have a ton of experience, but you know, we can help you in any way we can. And Lori and I volunteered to do some promos and some live streams for them. And what was really just genuine desire to help them and to learn, it opened so many doors. And many of the women that you heard on season two, they became guests on season two of the podcast because I met them through Her Next Chapter. Sometimes obedience just looks like showing up and just trying to figure out the next step and trusting God to multiply it. So by the time season two ended, I knew, number one, that God had stretched me. And I knew that he was about to do it again because many people were asking me, hey, have you considered moving to video? And I really didn't want to because I prefer hiding behind the microphone. But I prayed about it again. Lord, not my will, but yours. And you know what? Before I could even start searching for guests for season three, people start reaching out to me, people from all over the world, people that I never would have met in my regular life, only through this assignment. See, this is what this podcast has become for me. It's not just a show, it's an assignment that's tied to my testimony. And it's so funny because in the early years when I was having visions and dreams and I kept asking God, what do you want me to do? I understand you keep saying talk to people, but what do you want me to say? And I laugh about it now because it turns out the answer to that question was not much. You know, God gave me this assignment because I truly enjoy sitting with people. And I've learned that if you sit long enough, maybe you can help them feel safe enough to tell you the truth about what God has brought them through. That's the heart of Bernitha Rena Relates. We relate to people through truth. There's nothing new under the sun. Yeah, different names, different places, different details, sure, but the same God. And he's meeting people in the middle of real life. I want to close by saying, no, I'm not telling anybody to quit their job. Please hear me clearly. That is not my message. My message is simply this. In my life, when I trusted God with my heart, my future, my yes, He did not disappoint. I left corporate America with some provision, yeah, but I didn't have a complete roadmap. And God has taken care of me, y'all, not in the ways I expected or imagined, but He has been so faithful. And God continues to open doors. He continues to provide provision. And to me, that's the miracle. Nothing has been easy. Nothing has been easy. Please don't get me wrong. But God has been faithful. And I thank God that somewhere along the way, I stopped chasing escape. And I finally stopped and asked God, just what do you want me to do? And that's when He really started to show up. And He told me where He wanted me to go. So as we step into season 3, I really wanted to start here with my own story, because for me, this is more than a podcast. This is my testimony. Thanks for listening. I love you for it. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Hey, beautiful people. Bernitha here. If you're loving the conversations, there's so much more waiting for you at Bernitha Rena Relates podcast.com, where you can join our online community for daily inspiration and updates. And be sure to scan the QR code below so you can follow me on Instagram at Bernitha Rena Relates, and on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at Bernitha Rena Relates. While you're at it, go ahead and like, subscribe, and share this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for listening. We love you for it. We'll talk soon.
What's been done is done again. Same old story, different